York, Jeffrey, OTG Consulting, Seattle. Oof, we're all over the country. So let's kick this off. I am going to, I hope you can see my screen. No worries, there won't be many slides. We're going to be super interactive. So hope you have some coffee. I have mine right here, my Montana espresso mug that my wife brought me from she was trekking in Montana. Anyways, we wanted to quickly catch up, Henry and I, to just quickly have some coffee, have an interesting chat about what we saw at RSA, what you guys all saw, a few takeaways, interesting things. We have some really cool stuff to show you, non-producty, no worries. We're going to show you some super interesting things that have to do with malware, with how sophisticated hackers break into systems. Henry has some really cool demos. My name is Eric. I'm the VP Product Management for Votiro. I'm in Austin, by the way. It's nice and warm out here. Henry?
Hi, Henry Frith, VP of Solutions Engineering. I've been with Votiro for about 2 years, and I am in warm, hot Florida. It's actually in the 90s already, so not as nice as Hawaii probably, but it's warm.
So as this is a coffee talk, I have to talk about coffee for a few seconds. I'm a coffee geek, and for those of you coffee geeks out there, I know it's not me. I didn't make up these names. Rocky and Sylvia, that's my my Rancilio grinder and espresso machine. I did not name them. That's what Rancilio decided. But that's my setup. And as always, when we talk about coffee, the immediate question comes up: what is your preference? I think you know mine based on my setup. But if you can all use the chat just to kind of kick us off and tell us what you're into. Is it drip? Is it espresso? Is it French press? Espresso all the day. Absolutely. French press, says Henry. Super cool. If you guys can type it in the chat, we're running some statistics both on file threats and on coffee preferences. So, oh, that's interesting. AeroPress, oh, that I need to learn about. Turkish, okay, that I am absolutely in. And that is only for the pros in the room that truly understand how to make Turkish coffee. So let's kick this off. Turkish coffee, by the way, you don't need to know only how to prepare, you also need to know how to drink or how not to drink. So with that said, Cuban coffee, absolutely, Charles. So quick reminder, we're not going to talk about Votiro, we're not going to talk about the product, but I want to remind us all just what we do and just to set the stage and the context into what we're going to talk about. So Votiro, what we say is we deal with zero trust content security. We provide zero trust content security by sanitizing files wherever they are born, wherever they land, as they move in real time. We sanitize files, we clean them from known and unknown threats. So think antivirus, that is not what Votiro does. Antivirus searches for and detects known threats. We clean the known and unknown threats. How do we do that? Interesting technology. We can chat about that later. Henry can show you some cool stuff. It's called CDR, Content Disarm and Reconstruction. Imagine a day in my life. I receive an attachment in an email, I download that attachment, I then download another attachment from a web browser, I upload that into a shared folder, maybe I'm uploading that into my Salesforce account, into one of my customers' account, I send that over Slack. That file now has 10 or 20 different derivatives everywhere. Everywhere means everywhere that can be infected. We ensure that that doesn't happen. We ensure that the file lands safe, is 100% or as close to 100%. In security, nothing is 100%, but as clean as it can be, so it does not infect and so malware cannot find its way into your organization. We detect and disarm file-borne threats everywhere, on endpoints, as they fly throughout your networks, in data lakes, anywhere you can imagine. And let's talk about RSA. Bialetti coffee maker, I love that. Dave, that's a word of a pro. So let's talk about RSA. We just came back from RSA, and I super enjoyed it. I've been going to RSA for years, and I have to be honest. I've joined Votiro 2 months ago. I come from nearly 2 decades in the identity and access management space. I ran product teams in authentication vendors, access management, single sign-on, identity management vendors. So for me, RSA was always the identity show, which obviously is not the case. RSA was always about data security, and data security, the way to protect data, there are really 2 ways to protect data. One is securing identities and access, and the other one is securing the data itself. And I've seen an interesting evolution, and this is what I want to start poking into with the crowd, which is we've seen every year or every 2 years a cycle of change of focus within visitors at RSA and within what vendors emphasize more. It started with static identity security, multi-factor authentication, simple single sign-on. Then the focus moved to static data protection, encryption at rest, encryption in motion, things that you can configure, put in place, and data is secured. Then the focus turned back to identity with dynamic identity management, with adaptive authentication, adaptive access management. Then the focus shifted back to data. Last year was heavily focused on the endpoint. This year was super interesting for me, because this year was the year where everybody started realizing the big potential of machine learning, of artificial intelligence, how beyond adaptive and configurable identity and data protection, how it can become smart and how it can become truly adaptive. And my question back to you, going to RSA, looking at identity vendors, checking out data protection vendors, what are the big cyber projects that you're seeing that are budgeted for 2023 and are consuming most of your focus? Where are you putting your bets in terms of securing your most sensitive data? Is it in encryption technologies? Is it in data posture management, cloud posture management, cloud migrations, authentication, privileged access management? What is really on your mind? And if you want to chat through the chat window, that would be great, so we can talk about that. The actual event itself. BARD, BARD. Can we clarify? Charles. What did you see, Henry, as we see Google's AI ML? Oh, absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. And one of the most interesting things for me that I saw throughout the session is everyone's take on AI and ML. Everybody's trying to use the same engines to create the next cool technology, which in some cases is pretty amazing, in some cases. And by the way, if you'd like to speak up, raise your hand. We can unmute you. And obviously, we can unmute and you can speak up. Yep. So in terms of big budgets, where do you guys see the focus for your cyber and risk and posture? Made 60 minutes. Yep. Adaptive intelligent version. Anything else that is on the plate? For example, I'm seeing a few answers also through. Yeah. So if you'd like everyone to see this, please make sure to use the chat in the everyone mode and not in panelists and panelists only, and not the Q&A section. So that way everyone can see the chat. Henry, your takes on this.
Yeah, there was still someone put up here that, what was hot 9 months ago does tend to still show up there because of the fact you have to, buy the booth a year ahead and make all the planning and all that good stuff. So I agree. There was some stuff that was still pretty heavy last year that was still there. One thing I saw quite a bit of was the EDR and XDR vendors trying to separate themselves from all that noise. And the way I saw a lot of it was even the XDR, EDR vendors were talking about not only, what they're doing at the endpoint or in the cloud, but also talking about data security. How are they separating themselves from those other vendors? What kind of additional tools? So we saw things like privacy and data loss prevention and all starting to creep into their conversations, which I thought was very unique.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we move on into the next area, I'd like to move this back to you, Henry, to show some super cool stuff about how threat hides within different file structures. And as you pull this up, I'd like to just bring everyone's attention to, I'm not sure if everyone saw this, but there was a North Korean-based attack that was launched just lately. Actually, super sophisticated, pretty interesting. An APT attack, spear phishing attack, goes in through an email. The email has, a link that directs you to a OneDrive location, which downloads a file, a password protected file that deploys the first phase of an attack. Super sophisticated. That is how an attack is deployed in all of our organizations. And this is what Henry is going to show us, how exactly that is done.
Excellent. So again, thanks everyone. You can see I have my mascot over here in the back today, and he's working hard at make sure he doesn't start snoring in the middle of our conversations. What we're looking at here is how Votiro breaks down files, and when you talk about a document, really, no matter what kind of document you're talking about, it's made up of lots of other smaller subsets, objects, and actually additional files that are embedded inside of it. So this is the reason the threat actors are using weaponized documents to deliver their payload, because it's very complex and very easy for them to hide deep within inside the file a threat. Now, this is a real simple one, just to make it easier to understand, but they get much more complex than this one. So this is a Word document that we've embedded an executable inside of. And if you look, you'll see all the different portions of the file. You'll see XML for like formatting and the data. Any settings are all XML files. The other thing is you'll see OLE objects. And OLE objects is a place where threat actors spend a lot of time inserting malware. So in this case, we inserted a zip file into the OLE object, and then embedded inside of that zip file is a executable. So you can see that the average AV vendor, even your next generation type tools, are not going to find these a lot of times, because they're buried deep inside of the file, and there's not, if they don't already have a signature for them, most of the heuristic type engines cannot find those. So this is what Votiro's, what we were born, what we do. We know how to take these files apart and how to build a new file, leaving behind any of the unknowns. So this is an example of what they look like. Now, buried inside of a file can also be an image. So I might take this image, bury it inside of a file, and then send the file in with an image in it. So not only do you have to worry about all the objects and all inside of the file, but also the images that are embedded in the file. So in this case, I have this cool looking photo here. And what I did was I used an open source piece of software called StegHide, and I used steganography to hide a PII information inside of this file. So if I'm a threat actor and I want to exfiltrate data out of your network, this would be a perfect example of what I would do. Embed this data inside of an image and send that image out. You know, how many of us today do much of anything with outbound images? If I'm sending a photo out, you know, there's not many tools that can determine if there's anything bad inside of that image. The other thing that threat actors are doing more and more is using steganography to send data inbound for the first stage of a payload. So in my example here, you'll see that I double clicked on the file and was able to exfiltrate data out. And it's just going to ask me a password. And when I enter my password here, and this is a recording, so it'll take just a second. Is it playing? There it goes. You'll see all this PII information that was buried in that file. So I'm using this to exfiltrate data outside your network with a weaponized file, and that in this case it's an image, and this is a standalone image, but it could also be embedded inside of another file. Now I'm going to drag it over into Votiro Disarm, and when I drag it in there, you'll see that I disarm this file. So by disarming it, there's a clean file up top. If I go as far as opening that up, it will show that there's no longer any PII in that, and the file looks exactly the same after it's disarmed. So I'll turn it back, back over to you.
I think that's amazing because, you know, most folks might be aware about the risks of opening a Word document or a PDF, but who would worry about images, right?
Absolutely. And you can see now that there's no longer any data in it. And you can also see that the image size was reduced because I eliminated all that data that was inside it. It was originally 86K. It's only 46 now.
So there's a question whether does the user have two files? So that's a great question.
Yeah. So the user gets the clean file, the disarmed file, and the end user would not even know there was any difference in the file. So it's completely transparent to the end user. And as you saw, it's near real time. So the user, if it's coming in email, if they're downloading this file from Box or Dropbox or SharePoint or any other place, it's completely transparent to the end user and in near real time.
Yeah. From a user perspective, they're receiving a file which they know is safe to open. It's good to go. Takeaway number 2, I think we should move forward. One of the biggest trends I've heard in every single either prospect that came to us or booth I visited was reduce noise in the SOC. You know, for the past couple of years, there's been a very significant investment in posture management across so many different technologies: cloud security posture management, data security posture management. But if you think about it, SIM deployments, all of these technologies that at the end of the day are providing alerts. They're providing so many both true alerts and false positives alerts, but the amount of alert is getting to a point where there are actually researches ongoing now on alert fatigue, psychological researches on the impact on SOC team members that are quitting their jobs because this is becoming way too much, and that leads to burnout. And one of the things that we've seen is that some vendors are now looking at, okay, let's leave the alerting to alerting technologies. Let's start providing solutions that remediate automatically without the need to go and do very intensive threat hunting and very intensive threat intelligence. While that still is needed, there still is a need to automate and reduce the noise. And Stephen is saying, but that is exactly how the bad guys perform drive-bys and activate malware from within the image. Exactly. Whitepages.com attacks. Yep, Charles. And I think, my ask kind of to you, if you want to add a few comments in chat, is we're curious about how are you dealing with noise within your SOC? I mean, is it something that is accepted as okay, this is the norm and we can live with it? What are the tactics you're using to reduce some of that noise? And what technologies are you seeing that are helping you with reducing some of that? I mean, Henry, if I think about the execution type technologies, right? Technologies that take action instead of just alerting. So one of them would be, you know, from the world I come from, adaptive access management that decides in some scenarios to enforce multi-factor without human touch, right? Charles, you're saying we implemented browser isolation. Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Talk to us about that.
Yes, let me jump in on browser isolation. Great tools, but what happens when when the user actually needs to interact with the file? So everything is in the browser tool, but at some point they need to download that file and work with it. So at that point, you'd want to make sure that file is disarmed. Sandboxes. I spent 5 years at Proofpoint working with sandboxes, and every day the threat actors found another way to get around them. So tool that that was great a few years ago, it's becoming less and less effective in most organizations with sandboxing.
Yeah, and Charles mentions Menlo. Absolutely, that's that is one of the use cases we keep seeing in the field where, yep, browser isolation is used to run a browser session remotely. Great, that's all good. But what happens, to Henry's point, when the file is still downloaded onto the endpoint? That's where Votiro plugs in and really and sanitizes the file as it is brought down. File is cleaned. Yep. Is cleaned before you can download it. So when we say, and again, here there's that nuance that we need to keep bringing up, and this is what we're going to show. Actually, this leads into, Henry, that very neat password protected topic that you wanted to show. Sure. Because what happens is that as you sanitize a file, the question becomes, are you removing the known threats from it, the ones that already have signatures, or are you removing the unknown one? Something that really only content disarm and reconstruct can do. Let me move that back to you, Henry, for that before we move into the last topic.
Okay. So can you see the virus total screen? Okay. So real quick, I created I created a piece of malware, weaponized a Word document with it. It is I created it with Metasploit. You can see 39 of 64 AV vendors knew it was bad. Not sure what the other guys were doing. It was an old reverse shell that everyone should have, all the AV vendors, but that just shows a weakness in AV that it was completely transparent to, over almost a third of these vendors. So, okay, if I'm a threat actor, how do I get this past the 39 that know it's bad? I can obfuscate it and all that and work on that, but an even easier way to get past a lot of is just password protected. Once it's password protected, none of these vendors knew that it was malicious. The other thing threat actors are doing is putting their malware into trusted websites. So here, now that weaponized document, I've uploaded it to Box. It's setting in Box, a trusted site. I phish someone to go to this site and download this file. And as they download it, and naturally, it's not going to play. Oops, I'll do it manually. I've never seen a video that wouldn't play. So what happened here is it's downloaded our browser plugin, intercepts it, and tries to sanitize the file, but it's password protected. So what we do is we give the end user a PDF. And this PDF will open up and you train your users to go click on this, enter your password, And what Votiro does is open it up, sanitize that file, and then deliver to the end user a sanitized version of the file that's still password protected. So use the credentials they give us, open it up, sanitize, create a new file that we leave behind any unknown bits where that threat was, deliver it to the end user, and the end user ends up with a safe file.
Yeah, that to me is always super interesting to see how every single antivirus misses the password protected file, and we're left with a binary option: block the file, which is not great, pass the file, which is even worse. This is how we can clean files within an archived file. And for this last topic, I like to bring up 0 day, because this really is the crux of it. This is where things become interesting. Weaponizing a file, right? Delivering malicious content into an enterprise, great. 90% of that can be blocked by an endpoint detection product, by an antivirus, known signature things. What happens when that 0 day is deployed? Just like this Korean attack I mentioned a few minutes ago, North Korean attack, a link to a OneDrive file that's being downloaded with macros enabled in it. On that first day, on the first 3 or 4 days, there is really nothing you can do about that, because nobody knows that it's even an attack. And the question becomes, when I see something that is suspicious or that I don't know if it's malicious or not, do I block? Do I pass it on? Am I holding back the business? Am I impacting business efficiency? Do I want to allow the business to operate and take the risk? It varies between the analysts, but anywhere between 50 to 70% of successful attacks actually happen through a 0 day attack. So although antivirus technology can block 90% of threats, it is those 10% or 3% or 5% that actually make it through and are the ones that really cause the damage. So in your organization, if you'd like to chat a bit in the chat about how are you dealing with 0 day? What is your strategy to deal with 0 day? What are the technologies you're putting in place? And how willing are you to balance that risk between business efficiency and threat? That would be awesome to hear from you all. And again, a quick reminder, if anyone feels like speaking up, I'd love to unmute the mics. And Jeff is asking if our browser plugin works with Island.io enterprise browser.
Yeah, I just responded back to him. We haven't tested. Their tool is built on Chrome, so the Chromium browser. So our Chromium plugin should work right in conjunction with it without any problems, but I haven't tested. I'd be happy to work with you, Jeff, if you'd like to test it.
And I'll just tell you how we are dealing with this challenge. Obviously, when a file is blocked and is quarantined or is put in the sandbox, that's annoying, right? I need to Slack my IT team, ask them to release it. It takes time, takes sometimes days until we can detonate a file, in a safe zone and release it. I'd like to get my file now. I need my business to run, right? So what we do is we implement the CDR, Votiro CDR. We, as the file is downloaded, as it's downloaded from an email attachment, it is sanitized. Everything is removed, including the 0 day attack. Even when we don't know that we've removed it, we still the technology is such that it does remove it. So that promotes business efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. Happy to hear from the crowd about your experience there. And I think with that, so Charles is saying we enforce file signatures for software and installable files. That's, Henry, you were going to say?
Yeah, Charles, are you talking about digitally signed files? If is that what you're asking? So if it's digitally signed, we can, you can set exclusions for digitally signed files and say, we trust this file that's been signed and we don't want to do anything with it. Yeah. And the other thing, just to let you know, is usually on those type files, they're binary files, and you really cannot rebuild a binary file. We support 180 different file types, but there's no way to rebuild a binary file. So those would not be sanitized anyway. Yeah, and we have a 30-day trial we'd love everyone to sign up for. I apologize if you sign up and you get a few extra emails. We're automating some of the system, and I noticed yesterday that sometimes it sends multiple emails. I'll get that fixed. Just reply back. So if you get a few emails when you sign up, just let me know. But this is the 30-day trial that we're just starting to offer, that we're starting to automate. So this is a new process. So just bear with us. Everything should work. The only hiccup right now is it looks like you may get a couple extra emails when you first sign up. So I apologize about that. But if you'd like to test our software, we can spin it up quickly. This will, you'll have a tenant within a few seconds of standing it up, and then you can connect to whatever data source you want. And one thing you can do is you can just upload some test files right into the console just to see how it works.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I mean, if you have an antivirus and you're not happy with the results, maybe a file went through and you've noticed that it missed it, you can actually even experiment very simply within the Votiro free trial. Just upload a file, test it, make sure that the sanitized version is actually clean, and was sanitized, even though your AV may not have checked it out. It's pretty cool. I think we are up on time, and this was super awesome to have you all join. I hope this was useful. If anyone wants to hang out and ask questions, we're here. I'll be happy to stay on the call and answer any questions or any comments or any insights you may have. And obviously, we'll be more than happy to see you again when we do our next coffee chat.
Yeah, and we'd love feedback on how we can improve this, and also I'm sure that someone from our marketing team will send out something just so we can get some feedback on what we can do to improve these, and we look forward to doing lots more of these in the future. So thanks, everyone.
And Jeff is asking if we'll be sharing the recording. I believe so. Evan?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep. Perfect. So thanks everyone for joining. We'll be waiting another minute or two to see if anyone has questions or comments, and we'll let you go. Absolutely. One more coffee and
no more coffee for me. My cutoff's like 11 a.m. After that, no coffee. I got hooked on SodaStream about a year ago, and
so Jeffrey's asking if we cover QR codes as a file type. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, we don't, because it doesn't have a structure that we can disassemble and put back together. So the answer is no on that one. Good question.
And Henry, I mean, if a QR code shows up as a JPEG,
if they weaponize, yeah, if you put data inside of that, correct, but that QR code could point to a malicious website and we wouldn't have any visibility into that. Sounds like a feature request to me, seeing we got the product, the VP of products on the call.
So yes, now I will say that you're actually bringing up a really interesting point, because that question can be dealt with in two, or use case can be dealt with in two ways, right? One is the the JPEG or the whatever it is that carries the QR code, that on itself can be sanitized, right? Maybe
Right.
not the embedded QR code. Now, having said that, to Henry's point, if a QR code points to a malicious website, what we actually do is Votiro provides a browser plugin. So if you go to a malicious website and try downloading a file from there, that would be sanitized as well.
Good point.
It obviously, if this is a phishing attack and you go to and you enter your credentials in that website, that is not something that file sanitization can deal with. That's for other technologies to deal with, like multi-factor authentication.
But it is on the roadmap to have some
Absolutely.
capabilities around that coming real shortly.
Yeah. And yep. So great question, and which raises many different use cases. Okay, sandbox it first. Back to that whole zero trust. Absolutely. Zero trust for us means we sanitize every file. We do not trust any file. And are there demo licenses available for tabletop exercises? So the free trial is the easiest way to start. You get 30 days, you can try out the whole platform, it's all good. Beyond that, Henry, do you want to talk about demos and POCs?
Yeah, so the 30-day trial is really a we're trying to automate some of the POC process, but right now it's still a 30-day POC, and we can discuss what you're trying to do there. We also have just on our homepage, you can just upload a file right to our homepage and have it sanitized also. So not exactly what you're looking for the tabletop exercises. Is this for your customers, Charles? And we can unmute Charles if we might make it easier.
For a cybersecurity summit with 100 folks. Got it.
Yeah.
We can help with that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now to understand, absolutely.
Yeah, let's connect and let's be in touch, and we can help you with that for sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right.
Great. Okay, we'll call it a day. Well, not a day, but
thanks, Eric. Thanks,
Henry.
Evan and team on the back end that helped put this together. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. See you.